Welcome to the Encore Architect webinar. You've spent 30 years becoming the person everyone asks for advice. You're the person who sees the exceptions, connects the dots, navigates the politics. You're at the top of your game, so why do you feel unappreciated or even invisible? So this is a question I help people answer. I'm Lynn Freest. At 65, after 40 years with John Deere, I designed my exit, not because I was broken, but because I'd outgrown the role. Today at 75, I run my business, I host a podcast, I'm publishing a book, and I work with AI daily. I'm not slowing down, I'm accelerating and reinventing myself. If that sounds more interesting than 8,000 days of golf, let's talk about how to be an architect of your Encore life. So, you've all probably watched colleagues, friends wind down to retirement and then often be somewhat dissatisfied with it. And you've probably asked the question, there's got to be more than this. Well, the old script said you need to work hard, you climb the ladder, then you retire, and then you kind of drift into irrelevance. Well, what if the next 20 years could be the best 20 years? Now, many of you probably have financial plans, and this is not about that. This is about how you will use the time that you have. So today we're going to show you how to be the architect of your Encore life and not just drift into retirement. And at the end, I'll invite a small group of founding members for a 6-month intensive in designing your Encore life. So the problem, AARP has said that over 2/3 of people experience age discrimination. And, often they feel like they're invisible after 55. And conversely, the MIT Age Lab says there'll be probably at least 8,000 days of retirement, probably 22 years. And if you think you might have 30 years, that's almost 11,000 days. So what are you going to do about that? You're damn good at what you do. So, why not just get out there and makes the most of it? It's not the finish line that sometimes, and again, some of this comes back to, I guess, we think of retirement the way of our parents or even grandparents. And again, as they hit the age of, say, 65, uh, they were fortunate to have another 10 years. So they might have, a couple of things they could do. But now, if you have 20 to 30 years, then you have decades ahead of you. I talk to financial planners, and they often divide retirement into the go-go years, where you're traveling, playing golf, the slow-go years, where you're maybe somewhat limited in your ability to be active, and then there's no-go years, where life is just moves at a slower pace for you. And I've talked to people who actually have retired, and sometimes it happens faster than that. They say, yeah, the first month felt like a great vacation. And then in the second month, I got all my house projects done. And then in month 3, I start, what am I supposed to do with the next 8,000 days? Golf, travel, volunteer work, sometimes it doesn't feel that significant. And I will just contend you weren't built to drift. You were built to design this future. A bigger problem is um, we had 18 years or more, maybe, of education for our career. But generally speaking, we've had 20 hours of preparation for a 20 plus year that goes after the career. So we sometimes default to this old script we saw from, parents, grandparents, and quite frankly, it could be killing us, because inaction, having nothing to do, I don't think that leads to a long and fulfilling life. So there were kind of two false choices that we've been presented with. One is keep grinding in a career you've outgrown, tolerate the parts that drain you, pretend you have 20 plus years of ladder climbing. It's the old "I'm never going to retire" speech. But that can be, over time, that can be exhausting and soul crushing, quite frankly. Choice two was retire into irrelevance. Hope relaxation will fill the next 20 years. Sometimes that's terrifying to people. Now, to be honest, some people, they'll find things to do. They'll, quite frankly, spend that whole 22 years with their grandchildren and enjoy every minute of it. Some people will travel. Some people will pursue hobbies like gardening and stuff for 20 years and be perfectly happy with it. But again, I congratulate those people, and I'm sure they'll enjoy it. But I know that's not for me. And since you're here, I'm guessing that might not be for you. So there is a third path, and that's leveraging everything you've learned and experienced, your expertise, your relationships, the fact that you see the big picture on things, and you can channel that into work that lights you up. So retirement isn't the goal, reinvention is. So a little bit more about my story. I had over 40 years with John Deere, a great company, a great career. I enjoyed it. But about my age 59, which is at about 2000, the financial recession, you know, there was a restructuring. So I had a moment to step back and think, well, what am I doing here? I kind of see how my career is going to play out, for whatever reason. I wanted to do different things, but, at that point in time, I had a solid reputation. I had a solid set of skills. People viewed me in a particular way. So there was a moment of clarity there. I needed to do something different. And it felt kind of crazy to me. 40 years being successful in a company, you don't give that up on a whim, I'll say. But I decided I wanted to redesign myself and started thinking about my exit. Well, now I've been on the journey for 10 years. I retired in 2015, and here we are, and actually into 2026. I've made every mistake in the book. I've burned through time, money, and attention on different things as I've explored what it means to have a fulfilling encore career or encore life. You know, sometimes, people who successfully reinvent themselves, it's not that they have more money or courage or ideas, but a lot of it gets down to what I found was frameworks. So, and some of that it's really quite simple. How do I mine my expertise? How do I figure out how to reposition myself and show my value? How do I leverage relationship capital? And how do I design experiments that aren't all or nothing, but, keep moving me forward in small steps? So for me, I have done a lot of experiments. Now, I've coached executives. I was doing that even before I left the company. I've continued to do that, but that keeps me in tune with what are the executives thinking, feeling, and experiencing. I've got over 50 podcast conversations with experts and people on the journey of reinvention, and I've researched over 60 authors. So I've done a lot of work, and I'll admit, I've done experiments, I've done things, and I've done them wrong, and I've recovered from that. But that's what I'm going to try to teach you. The frameworks that took me 9 years, you're going to be able to learn this in 6 months. So the framework in a broad sense is there's going to be a foundation, who you've become or who you want to become. There'll be a blueprint, what you're building, what are the elements involved in a successful, being a successful architect of your Encore life. Construction, some of the actually the details, how you're actually going to do this thing. How do you become a podcaster, for example? And then sustainability. And we'll talk again because you're not talking about something I'm going to do for a quarterly project. You're kind of mapping out what might I do for several decades and understanding you'll probably change what you do over the span of 2 or 3 decades. And you'll have the skills then to once again reinvent yourself as you go forward. Now, going back to the first phase, the foundation, again, most people, they feel that they're too old, too expensive, too specialized, but that's wrong. In your 40 years or in my 40 years, you don't have just old war stories, you have wisdom. You've seen economic cycles come and go, organizational changes, strategies that succeed or fail, things that nobody fresh out of B school is going to have. But in this first phase, we want to help you mine that wisdom that you have and map your experience, identify your transferable patterns, and then document your relationship capital. Now I'm going to stop here and give you a quick example. So here is one of the things I help people step through. It's called the Glean method, just an acronym to try to help remember the elements of it. But it's gather, list some of the things from your career. We're going to talk about not what your job titles were, but we're going to talk about the things that you enjoyed that lit you up and you were excited about. Then we'll link, for each of these episodes or things that you start writing down, we're going to think about, well, what was the principle or what was the thing that really made a difference in these things? There's an old thing where it's attributed to a lot of people. The SEALs are one of them, but slow is smooth when the stakes are high, or designed for the exceptions. Because that's one of those things. Anybody can design a process. In fact, AI can design a process. But you know what? The real value comes when you handle the things where the process doesn't work or breaks down. Then we talk about extracting. We're going to capture why behind the principle. What was underneath all that? Identify the conditions and things that went into the constraints. And then really try to distill the truth. What can we share? We're not just sharing war stories, as I said earlier. We're sharing, okay, this is the element, maybe in a past context, but we'll take it forward. I had when I was early in my career, programming in Fortran was brand new, and I learned how to do some Fortran programming, created some knowledge, some information about some stuff, and I had a boss that took me aside and said, Lynn, this is all well and good. He said, but I'm wondering if this is just allowing you to make bigger mistakes faster. And quite frankly, we can all see that as we start using technology and haven't learned how to do that. Certainly, people can do that in the AI arena. The next step out is adapt. We'll transfer those things that you learned, and it might have been in a different framework, a different time, but how would that apply in today's world? We talk about the world is always new. Well, if you go back and read things from the Greek and Roman Stoics, the people problems have kind of stayed similar over 2,000 years. So the problems, we may have brand new technology, but people are largely analog and they haven't upgraded quite that quickly. So we're still dealing with the same people issues. That may be where your unique value proposition lies. And then finally, the piece is narrate. How do you actually have to practice? You maybe have never had to articulate things, explain them to people that haven't seen this before, and yet learn to do it in a way that makes sense to them so that they can adopt these things for themselves. So that again is just, it's one concrete example, what I call the glean method, that helps you figure out where your wisdom is and then how do you convey that to people. We'll go back. So we're back to the framework. The next piece we're going to, talk about is the blueprint, what you're building. Well, once you know who you want to become, then you have to design what's next. And this isn't about finding your passion. That can be useful, but it's often a terrible idea. But we want to find the intersection of three things. What lights you up? Where does your energy come from? What are you naturally great at? What's your expertise? What are the skills you naturally have? And then what the world needs that you can provide. That's the economic answer. What will people pay you for, as it were? And we'll stress test it. The last thing you need is a mediocre next chapter. It's kind of just a whatever kind of a thing. After that, we'll move into construction. How do you build it? Build your runway. Again, we'll craft a positioning story. What do I actually tell people that I'm about? How do I talk to this to friends, family, or strangers for that matter? We'll talk about who are the people you need to talk to? What are the strategic conversations you need to have? Design some low risk experiments. A lot in today's world, you can try out a lot of stuff. Just as I'm trying out these webinars. I'm not naturally a person who does a lot of webinars, so I'm trying out the technology. I'm trying out the whole speaking style. And then we're going to leverage your relationship capital. Again, a lot of it is people. More importantly, people who know other people. That will always be a thing to figure out as you go forward. I was just in a thing today where people were talking, how do I find opportunities in my Encore life? And it's, the end of every conversation you have with somebody should be, and who would you recommend I talk to? Could you recommend 2 or 3 people I should talk to next? Because often the interesting things will happen, not with your friends or acquaintances who you've known for a long time. It will actually be people that they know. And it may be younger people. It may be people the same age. Any number of things can happen. So then we get to the fourth stage, sustainability. And this is a piece where, again, I like to think of the Encore life as a portfolio life. So you'll have issues around, make decisions around finances, but you'll also talk about what emotionally, how do you feel about things practically? And the portfolio life is not a single-minded career. You actually may devote X amount of time to consulting or coaching. You may devote X amount of time, obviously, to family, friends, travel. You may devote some time to nonprofit work. Now, interestingly enough, as you go through this, given the fact that you're working on these 2 decades or more, you may find yourself, for example, you may start doing some nonprofit work, but you know what? You find out that this organization really needs your leadership abilities. And you might end up saying, oh, well, I'll become the director of this nonprofit. And all of a sudden, maybe that becomes an income source as well as a source of contribution. So there's different things can happen. Likewise, you may have a hobby. You may be doing things like, woodworking. And then all of a sudden you find everybody likes the breadboards you're making, for example. And you decide to create a small business around making breadboards. These things can change over time and depending on what your interests are. So in summary, what we're going to have is we'll have the foundation, we'll have the blueprint, how are you going to build it with construction, and then how are you going to sustain it? And this is different from career transitions or traditional planning. for retirement. Um, and again, and then we'll have within this, I showed you one example of a strategy or a framework. We'll have more. Not only that, but within the program I'll share with you, there'll be conversations. We're going to get together. This is going to be a community. It's not going to be just you and me. We're going to work together with others. One of the things I have learned in my 10 years is it's just both vital and energizing to be in a community of people. You may not all be working on the same thing, but you all have an interest in, again, creating that encore life or maybe starting a business or whatever it may be. So being in community is very powerful part of it. And I will say, don't be surprised if the community needs to be a little different than either your past work life community or even your family and friends. Uh, they may or may not, one, understand what you want to do. Uh, and sometimes you actually have to have a new circle of friends to become the architect of your encore life. So some of this is, what makes this different? Um, I can do this. Other people could do this. Well, as we think AI can do this, and literally I do use an element of that in the coaching. And let me show you a quick example of that. Well, as I say, I'm learning to do these things. So sometimes, okay, I think I do have that. Let me see. Yep. This is, again, one of my many experiments. How do I present this? Is actually, I'm also trying to live stream it. So here's the actual demo of uh, Lin AI Pro. And so I put in a couple of questions. I said, can I create an Encore life plan in 6 months? And this was the answer it gave. Yes, you can. In 6 months, you can do these things. What you don't want to do is spend 6 months just thinking about change without taking any steps. Threw in another question, what might success look like? And it sort of built on his previous answer, what you'll do, what you can reasonably accomplish. But then let's say just, and again, this is something that will be available to you 24/7. Uh, what are 3 pitfalls I need to consider in so there's a live question. It's thinking about it. So here it says, here are 3 common pitfalls. Defaulting to what's familiar, tempting to stick with what you know, designing an isolation. I actually just mentioned that a little while ago. Or treating it like old style or retirement planning. It's not just about how do you manage your money or design your leisure. It's about meaning, contribution, and growth. So again, here's a couple, answers. And, just another idea. Let's see. Uh, what could I, design in the first week? So here it goes back to the framework. As I said, Lin AI Pro is designed with my frameworks, my knowledge, the things that I've done and created, the information from the podcast that I've interviewed people with. So it's all there, and it will help you. Now, is it as good as maybe sharing time with me or peer groups? No, but it will get you through the first opening questions on these things. Here's what you can design in week one, your transition plan, map out the practical side, your identity reset. And we'll talk a lot about in the program, a lot about identity because that's probably almost as important as learning new skills or new technology or anything like that. But what's your new identity? Because for me, for 40 years, I was an employee. I was an engineer. I worked in a big company. Uh, I had 40 years of identity created. When I started this in 2015, I didn't do it intentionally at first, but later on I had to come back and say, you got to think about what do I want to be known for now, and what do I do now? So this is, the whole idea. But, as you work with me and work in this program, you've got this available 24/7. So it may not, again, we'll have more in depth and working with other people as well as myself, obviously can give you even richer experience. But this gives you an idea what Lin AI Pro is there to help you at any time. And I mentioned as we're going through this, there's going to be a live community, and again with the work I've done over these 10 years, we've got some battle tested frameworks. This isn't brand new stuff; it's stuff that both that I have tried out and stuff that I've seen other people do and make great success out of it. It's I think Steve Jobs when he introduced the iPod said you could have a thousand songs in your pocket was his thing. Well, in this case, with Lin AI Pro, you got a coach in your pocket 24/7. So let's step back just a second here, maybe in a little more depth. Uh, there'll be Lin AI Pro, and then there's also a community, and there's going to be monthly teaching calls. So once a month we'll have the cohort together, and I'll do a deep dive into some piece of the framework. We'll have case studies, examples, and this isn't motivational. These are things I'll give you a framework, and I'll expect you to go to work on that before the next call. Then on the next weekend, the second call, second call of each month, it's going to be office hours. It's going to where you going to bring your questions, your specific issues to the group, and certainly I'll answer them. But also, you'll have the opportunity and the experience of other people. So the magic kind of comes in the fact that you've got this 24/7 AI support, but then we've also got the monthly teaching, the monthly office hours. So it means you're never stuck. You're always able to make progress. You're always moving forward. Most other coaching calls, it is, or groups, it's a call or 2 month. And then in between times, you're kind of on your own. Here, you're going to get the opportunity for support every day. Whenever the thoughts occur to you, you won't have to wait for the next call. You'll have Lin AI Pro there to help you go forward. So the offer on this is the founding cohort. I plan to run this for at least 6 months. Normally, Lin AI and the Encore Architect program is $197 a month, but for this founding cohort, it's going to just be $138 a month, which is basically 30% off. Obviously, you get Lin AI Pro access 24/7. You get 2 monthly live calls. You'll have founding member status because you're going to help me even build and refine further the program. Also, for those people who are on the founding cohort, I'll have a 4-week intensive launch where we'll actually meet every week for a month just to be sure you're off to a great start. Now, it is only going to be open to 20 founding members. And you might say, well, why 20? Um, that's because intimacy matters. Everyone gets some airtime. Uh, know your name, your story, your challenges. And I couldn't do that if we tried to ramp it up with 100 people or something right to start with. The timeline is we're going to start in February. So we have until the end of the month here to make your decision. And then we'll go for 6 months and work our way through that blueprint of, or the foundation, the blueprint, the construction, and the sustainability. So by July of 2026, you'll have a clear Encore life vision. You'll have positioning and story leveraging experience. You'll have a practical action plan. You'll have already conducted some strategic experiments as well as maybe more ongoing. And you have a support system to keep you accountable. So the shift is no more drifting, no more waiting, no more wondering. You'll be the you'll be the architect of your Encore life and not just drifting through it. So who is this for? Generally speaking, I've been thinking of people of ages 50 plus. You may be have retired, but maybe not. You may be preparing. You may be in, like I was before I retired, thinking about, okay, what am I going to do here? So, this isn't for everybody though. Now, it could be the thought that you want to do something new. You may be feeling that we talked earlier about invisible or undervalued. But a lot of it just has to do, what do you want to do? What's purposeful for you, and not just, like I said, drifting or leisurely, but you want to be doing something, and you're willing to do the work. Plus, you're ready to invest in yourself. Again, there are people who can't afford to invest in themselves. I actually have a free version of Lynn AI that they can get some help there too. And obviously, I have blog posts, I have podcasts, I have other sources. Those are things that could also be used for people who don't have the resources at this time. Conversely, this is not a thing for you. If you just want to retire and golf, which there's nothing wrong with that. If you're looking for a quick fix or a magic bullet, that's not here either. This is, you have to be willing to challenge yourself and your assumptions. And I can't hand you a solution. And I've, learned that many times over the years. My solution is inherently not going to work for you. You have to design your own solution. So if you want someone to tell you exactly what to do, this is not the program. I will give you frameworks. I'll give you support. Other people will give you support, but you have to create the design. And obviously you have to want to take the action. But what if? Do I need to quit my job? No, of course not. None of this requires, quote, full-time work. It can be very useful if you can spend some time at it, but you don't have to quit your job. And this isn't about burning bridges. If you say, I'm going to jump into this program and just walk in the door and quit, well, that may not be the best strategy either, and it's not necessary. In fact, it's often smarter while you're employed to do some experiments before you're working on your retirement savings. What if I don't know what I want? Well, and that's perfect too, because certainly the first and second phases, we're going to talk about what it is you do want. We'll spend a lot of time. What is it that excites me? What gets me up in the morning? What's the new me that I want to be? So that's the thing where this is a good time for you to explore those things, and that doesn't happen overnight either. I did not reinvent myself. And quite frankly, I started out with a thought I wanted to be a manufacturing consultant. I was an engineer, been in manufacturing, and that's what I did for 3 or 4 years. But then all of a sudden, there's must be something else. And quite frankly, some friends said, "Okay, Lynn, you've been reinventing yourself for 5, 6 years now. Uh, Maybe you should teach others how to do the same thing." So that's the idea that uh, your interests will change, and that's fine. But you'll now have a structure to go about that intentionally. And you know, when people first think about retirement or retire, they often don't have clarity. Certainly in the past, there's a fog. Okay. We want to change that fog that sometimes happens when you've lost your routines, you've lost your uh, things that you do each and every day when you're at work. That's the whole diet. We're going to try to cut through the fog. And is 6 months really enough? Well, to transform your entire life and have a plan that will last for 20 years, probably not. But you can get crystal clear on who you want to become, what you're building, and how you'll build it. Now, it took me 9 years to get to the spot where I'm at now because I failed, I experimented, I reinvented. You, on the other hand, will get the compressed version. So your 6 months of focused work and working with the frameworks I've created uh, encapsulate my 9 years of exploring these things. Then what happens after 6 months? Well, there will be an opportunity to continue in the Encore Architects community. And for those of you who join at the founding rate, you'll continue with that founding rate. Or, quite frankly, you may have what you need, and you can fly solo with the plan in hand. It'll be your choice. Somebody said, well, what if I fall behind? Well, that's what Lin AI Pro is for, to help you catch up. Again, in a 6 month cohort, we're all in this together, and there will be different seasons of your life. Maybe there's some caregiving you have to do. Maybe something else. Life happens to all of us. So there's always time to catch up. Again, you know, you may have 20 plus years, so it's not a sprint over 6 months. It's a marathon, or it's a discovery journey over 2 decades, maybe. So with that, I want to see if you're ready to become a founding member. Again, it's only 20 spots. Um, the timeline, it will start in February of 2026. And I've got the QR code here, and I'll also, in the replay, I'll have the actual link. You'll be actually sign up through Lin AI Pro is how you'll get connected to the Encore Architect community. And if you use the coupon code Founder26, that will get you that special rate. So again, the deadline is 31 January 2026, so that you're part of the founding cohort. And I do only have 20 spots available, so that will be a possible limitation. And, I didn't say 20 just to try to get false urgency either. It was really intentional in that working with 20 people as I really create more clarity in this program. Everybody gets a voice, and this will, you know, give everybody a chance to participate. But somebody might say, this sounds amazing, but maybe I'll wait. Well, for me, waiting is drifting. And maybe that's where you're at right now. That's okay. But if you're done drifting, today is not too early to start. So again, you've spent 30 to 40 years building your expertise, and now it's time for you to leverage it. Now it's time to design and be the architect of your Encore life. Click on these links, and they'll be in the replay. And also, there'll be an opportunity. I'm doing this webinar one more time on January 28th at this same time, and you could check back in. The content will be probably similar, but it won't be the same. So with that, if not, no extra questions, we'll close up the session. And again, thank you. And I look forward to seeing you being the architect of your Encore career.